Our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix F1 driver ratings. Before we dive into it, final tickets remaining for our Manchester live show on the 3rd of December. The other two shows are sold out. This Manchester one is a big venue and we need you there. We want vibes. We want cheering, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. If you want to come along, if you're near Manchester, if you're not near Manchester, if you're in Australia, book a flight. Maybe don't. Maybe not worth it. But either or, please come along to our Manchester show on the 3rd of December. We'd love to see you there. Thank you. Goodbye. But not goodbye, because we're getting into our driver ratings. Tommy, starting with Logan Sargeant. Started 20th, finished 16th. I am going to lock in a whopping 5 out of 10 for Logie Bear, who secured 21st out of 20. Technically 22. It's annoying because I think he could have had a better race. Some people will say, well, he gained 4 positions because we didn't actually have any cars DNFing. However, he made massive mistakes in qualifying, which then led to him starting last when he shouldn't have started last. Yeah, a difficult weekend for Logan.
Yeah, gone for a 5 out of 10 for Logan as well. Qualifying, bit embarrassing way to end the year to not even get a lap in. It's happened a few times. He was better in the race. Sounds like he's going to be there next year based on the team radio we heard at the end with James Vowles.
Well, actually, no, Tommy, because they did backtrack. James Vowles definitely backtracked a little bit afterwards because he was asked after the race, what was all that about, hey? Yeah. And then he was basically sort of saying, well, look, he's been part of the academy for all this time, for many, many years, and that's not to say it will change depending on what decision we make moving forward, and he'll always be a part and we'll work together over the winter. So basically saying it has not been decided. Okay, let's go to Alex Albon now. Started 14th, finished 14th.
Gone for a 6 out of 10 for Albon. Bit of a mediocre way to end what's been a really good season for Albon. Of course, whitewashed Logie in qualifying. But his race, I don't know, his qualifying, I feel like he maybe could have done better. The Williams is a good car now. 14th. It's decent, maybe not spectacular. We've seen him do better. And finishing 14th as well. He made a poor start. Nearly got a track limit penalty. He flirted with it. He loves a track limit penalty, but this time just managed to avoid it. Yeah, just a kind of all right, but not great.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 as well for Alex. Williams struggled a little bit, I think, this weekend. Kind of baiting us in qualifying in some ways with how quick they were in the first and second sectors and then lost 3 days in the final sector. Yeah, finished 14th. No DNFs to claim anything else from that. A great season as a whole for Alex, and he very much carried that Williams team. Daniel Ricciardo started 15th, finished 11th. I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Daniel Ricciardo. A shame that obviously he didn't score any points. Qualifying was, again, similar to Logan. Qualifying was where he left a lot to be desired, and then he was quite unlucky at the beginning of the race getting that tear off. Caught in his duct, which the team then decided to pit him early to ensure that he didn't retire from the race. Made some good progress, but just missed out on the points. So I'm going to go for a 7.
I've also gone for a 7 for Daniel Ricciardo. It's a drive where he's not been on Yuki's level this weekend. Almost like surprising that he's finished 11th, just kind of out of nowhere, really. And it seemed like at the end, he was very close to maybe even nabbing a point, and you thought this could maybe have changed things in the title for them. But yeah, what might have been, I think, based on the tear-off, because the AlphaTauri clearly had some good pace.
Yuki Tsunoda now. Started 6th, finished 8th.
I've gone for a 10 out of 10 for Yuki. You see P8, normally you save like a 10 out of 10 for a midfield driver that maybe gets like a 4th or 5th or a 3rd or whatever, but what more could he have done? The fact is, it's a race where there's been no stoppages or like safety cars and things like that. It's not been a crazy race. So realistically, you can't really expect a good result. And yet still, he got a very good result in P8. Started 6th, like best he could have done in qualifying, best he could have done in the race. Led the race as well, just for something cool to see at the end of the year. A good way to end a season where I think he has been very, very impressive.
I'm also going to go for a 10 out of 10. An incredibly impressive weekend, not just in the race. To qualify 6th is, deserves the same kind of credit as when Daniel Ricciardo, or how well Daniel Ricciardo performed in Mexico. And I think with Yuki finishing 8th, you make a good point about the fact that nobody DNF'd, and therefore that is an 8th on merit. AlphaTauri rolled the dice, and I think, it's difficult to decide whether or not going for that one stop was the right decision or not. We'll never know. Yeah. Well done, Yuki. You get a 10 out of 10. Nico Hulkenberg started 8th, finished 15th. Oh, Haas. I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg because I'm going to give him a slight nod to the fact that he went into Q3 again. I'm pretty sure Haas have got into around half of the Q3s this year, and yet the race is just the most... I bet they are so happy to be putting that car in the bin. Whether it's the old or the new spec Haas, neither worked in the race. Almost immediately, he was out of the points. I think he had a difficult start as well, which didn't help things. But yeah, 6 out of 10.
I have gone for a 6 out of 10 as well for Nico Hulkenberg. I think starting 8th, finishing 15th, I would not be surprised if you averaged all his results of the season. And that's what his average was. Like somehow getting a Haas into Q3 and then just dropping down the order because they can't do anything. Haas just shocking, and I'm sick of saying it every week that it's just pain.
Kevin Magnussen started 17th, finished 20th.
Gone for a 4 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. Of course, the Haas is rubbish, and he's finished last, but he can't do anything in that car, but then Hulkenberg showed what he can do in qualifying. So yeah, just another not great performance from K-Mag for a season where I think he's been very disappointing.
I've gone for a 3 out of 10 for K-Mag. I think it was a very poor race from him. Pitted so early, I think on lap 5 off of his mediums, which then, if you're pitting on lap 5, especially when you're in a Haas, even a 2-stop strategy is going to be quite difficult. And he was, he finished a lap down. His pace was just non-existent. Yeah, not the way that K-Mag would have wanted to finish this year. Lance Stroll started 13th, finished 10th. I have gone for a 6 out of 10 for Lance Stroll. Qualifying was under par, you'd have to say, starting 13th. And of course, he missed out on Q3 by a 10th and a half, which, we've kind of already said qualifying was very, very close. So he was kind of on the wrong end of that as well. Still scored a point at the end of the day, but I don't think it was anything special from Lance, considering he has had a couple of pretty decent races recently.
Yeah, I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Stroll. It's so borderline between. I know. It's so funny because 10 is quite a wide range of scores, yet I still want to give half grades even though we can't, because so many of the times I'm just like, it's between those two, and 7 feels so much higher than 6, even though it's one grade. I know that sounds really stupid to say, but I think because he got a point, I'll go with 7.
Insight to your brain.
I know. I'm literally like,
6
my brain is
so much lower than 7, but 7 to 8, that's marginal. That's tiny.
Yeah, I think it is though. I think he's ended the season very well as well, and to get a point in an Aston Martin that didn't look all that this race is still fairly impressive. So I'll go for a 7 out of 10.
Fernando Alonso now started 7th, finished 7th.
Gone for a 9 out of 10. The fanboy's back. It was going to be an 8. No, it's an 8. No, it's an 8. I saw your face then. 7th, I think, was probably maximum that Aston could maybe hope for. It didn't look all that good. A classic Alonso drive where he's delivered a very good amount out of that car, and he's done that all year.
I have gone for an 8 out of 10 as well for Fernando. I think he was incredibly lucky to not get a penalty in front of Hamilton, and the way he slowed down at the hairpin, and Hamilton, of course, thought it was a brake check. It seemed more like a lift. But yeah, I think it was still a very good weekend for Fernando. Aston didn't really look that great, as you say. He even said after qualifying that it was the best result that he could have hoped for. Wasn't able to overthrow McLaren for 4th in the Constructors, but he'll be back next year, I'm sure. Valtteri Bottas started 18th, finished 19th. I love grading Alfa Romeo. 5 out of 10 for Valtteri Bottas, which might seem strange, finishing 19th. Is it a 5 or is it a 4? It's a 4, isn't it? It's a 4 out of 10 for Valtteri Bottas. Struggle bus for Valtteri Bottas. yeah, he was kind of unlucky with the strategy that he was. Well, I say unlucky. The team shouldn't have put him on the strategy that he did, because I think he was the faster driver than Zhou Guanyu this weekend, but still had no pace on the strategy that he was given. Tried to get something out of it, finished a lap down. Yeah, 4 out of 10.
Yeah, gone for a 4 out of 10 as well for Bottas. It's hard to know really what to say about Alfa Romeo anymore. They have had a really poor end to the season. When you look at last year, they got quite a few points on the board, but they're almost, I think, challenging Haas for the worst team now. Yeah, just meh.
Zhou Guanyu started 19th, finished 17th.
Speaking of meh, I have gone for a 4 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu as well. Hard to separate them. Obviously, Zhou's finished higher in the race, qualified lower. Below average, I'd say, even though the car is not great. And it's a shame for Zhou because I really did feel like he was improving at the start of the season. And it'd be interesting to see with Paul Chair as F2 champion sat on the pit wall, whether that will put even more pressure on him or what next year. But yeah, it's 4 out of 10 for Zhou.
I've also gone for a 4 out of 10. You might be thinking, he's finished a couple of positions higher, Matt. But the thing is, he was on the better strategy and still didn't really manage to make anything work. He made a mistake in qualifying, which caused for him to start 19th. So, yeah, I think a below average weekend for Zhou. Oscar Piastri started 3rd, finished 6th. I have gone for a 7 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri this weekend. A great qualifying. Didn't quite have the pace that Lando did this weekend. And I would say just McLaren as a whole, I expected a little bit more, especially at the beginning when especially Lando looked very, very quick on the back of Charles. And they sort of just fell away. I think overall Oscar can be incredibly happy with his rookie campaign. But yeah, just lacking a little bit against Lando. And considering what I've graded Lando, I think 7 is fair.
Yeah, I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Piastri as well. Much more like it. I feel like he's not been anywhere near Lando in recent races, and there was maybe a bit of a worry again early on in the race about tyres, where you're kind of like, he's dropping off a cliff again. That's something he's definitely struggled with this year. His pace has been really, really good, and I think next year I'm sure he'll improve that. He's done a very good job to secure McLaren some solid points.
Lando Norris started 5th, finished 5th.
I've gone for as you can tell, it's another borderline. I'm going to go for a 7. I think he's underachieved in a McLaren, which could have done better. And maybe that's a victim of his own success because of how well Lando's been doing. 2nd maybe would have been a long shot, but 3rd I think would have been possible. And I think, Lando, without that poor qualifying, probably starts 2nd on the grid and drives to a comfortable 2nd, if not 3rd.
Yeah, I'm also between 2 grades. God, I feel like 7's too harsh because he did beat Piastri, but then I guess you take grades into account where Piastri is a rookie and he didn't finish that far off Norris. 7 out of 10 for Lando Norris. Yeah, locked in. 7 out of 10. Yeah, he made a mistake in qualifying. I think that definitely the front row of the grid was possible there, and I'm convinced that he would have probably delivered. 8. 8 out of 10 because he was screwed over by the pit stop that McLaren did. Otherwise, he would have probably fought Russell for that final podium position, with Perez having that penalty as well. So he looked very quick. He was quick at the start. He was getting very much in the mix. So yes, I'm going to say it's a strong race and an 8 out of 10. Pierre Gasly started 10th, finished 13th. This is a largely high grade for a 13th position, but I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly this weekend because I think it needs to be mentioned that Alpine just screwed him with his strategy. It genuinely feels like an Ocon vibe at the moment at Alpine, where they just try and help him as much as possible. And Gasly, I think, showed that over the team radio again, his frustrations. He had a great Q3 performance, looked generally the better driver at Alpine, and yet still finished 13th. The race pace wasn't particularly there. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I've gone for a 7 out of 10 as well for Gasly. I think he's very unfortunate. Start of the race, I think I mentioned it again, quietly was very good again, where you're like, Gasly's running very high up here in the Alpine and Ocon's not really anywhere. So very impressive from him, and then it all kind of came undone with a bad strategy and also the contact with Hamilton, which maybe damaged his car a little bit as well. And it all kind of unraveled from there. But Gasly's been quietly very, very good, particularly near the end of the season.
Esteban Ocon now started 12th, finished 12th.
Gone for a 6 out of 10 for Ocon. Now thinking 5 because it is very average.
I love it.
It's average. No, as soon as I read 12th and 12th, I'm like, that is the definition of average, so it should be a 5. Yeah, I'm going for a 5 for Ocon. An average race and an average car, and there's not really much more to say. Definitely 5 now. Why did I even put 6 in the first place? I'm an idiot.
Wow, that's crazy, because I've gone for a 6 out of 10. I think that's, he's beaten his teammate at the end of the day. I know Gasly didn't have the best strategy, but I can't give him two points lower than what I've given Gasly. So I'm going to give a 6 out of 10 for Ocon, who did get the preferential treatment from Alpine, in my opinion. And yeah, it's just a weekend to forget, really, for Alpine, that could have utilised perhaps a reasonably strong qualifying car into a few points, but they didn't. Lewis Hamilton started 11th, finished 9th. I have gone for a 6 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton this weekend. One to forget, I would say. Still scored a couple of points, but just was lacking in qualifying. He seemed mystified after quali and when he was in interviews. In the race, drives into the back of Gasly, which caught him out slightly because of Gasly's lockup, but at the same time, he just sort of rolled into the back of the Alpine, and that is on him. Still looked like he was trying to make up a lot of positions, seemed like he was involved in a lot of overtakes, but yet still only finished 9th. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 6 out of 10.
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, terrible qualifying, which has been his downfall, and then I expected his usual kind of masterclass in the race that we've seen, but instead crashed into Gasly. Didn't have huge amount of pace. Should have passed Tsunoda. Kind of messed that up at the end. And it's a shame, really, because it's a sad way to end what I personally think is quite an underrated season from Hamilton. He's done a very good job and scored really good points and been very solid.
George Russell started 4th, finished 3rd.
Gone for a 9 out of 10 for George. Much more like it. I think a brilliant result to end the season. I'm sure it's going to be a big confidence boost after the year that he's had as well to end the season. Could have been higher in qualifying and challenge, but I don't think there's a huge amount more that he could have done. Completely wiped the floor with Hamilton this weekend, which is no mean feat at all. So yeah, very good from George.
I love it. But no, George was absolutely on it this weekend. I went for a 9 out of 10 as well. Not far away from perhaps even a 10 had he maybe beaten Leclerc at the end. It was a brilliant. I can't really say much more about his weekend. He looks strong. It's just it's the odd weekend in the year where he just seems like he's got so much more confidence than Hamilton in the car, and that's not an easy feat. Carlos Sainz started 16th, finished 18th. Oh, I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz this weekend. Obviously had that crash in free practice 2. Sat out FP1. The whole weekend was a struggle for Carlos. Obviously getting knocked out in Q1. I know that he blamed traffic and this, that and the other, but I'm sorry, you have to be making it through out of Q1, especially with the fight that Ferrari were trying to take to Mercedes for second in the championship. And then just didn't really have any pace either in the race, and then ended up retiring on the final lap. He just needed to score a few points and Ferrari would have finished second, but didn't happen.
Yeah, I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Sainz as well. Nightmare weekend, really, for him. He was unfortunate. Strange that Ferrari tried to do that kind of strategy, but like we say, they had to gamble, I guess, based on...
It's the one time as well that Carlos has actually gone with a Ferrari strategy rather than being like, no, I'm doing
my own. Yeah,
he was going, all right, we'll do this. We'll roll the dice. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, just a nightmare weekend for Carlos, which is a shame because I think he's had a good season and obviously some very high moments as well, including the only win that wasn't Red Bull.
Charles Leclerc started 2nd, finished 2nd.
Gone for a 9 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc. Another brilliant weekend to end the season. Speaking of Carlos, there was that stage where maybe wasn't looking great for Charles and Carlos had become the GOAT, but I think the last few races shown that Charles Leclerc still has that edge, and he's had a particularly good end to the season with some brilliant qualifying, but also good in the race. I think the only thing I can sort of downgrade him for is maybe could have been a bit more aggressive with Max that we were talking about in the main podcast and bullied him off the road, which maybe he would need to do when it comes to if Ferrari finally deliver him a car where he can challenge for the title. But yeah, it was another great performance from Charles. So I've gone for a 9.
Certainly was. I've gone for a 9 out of 10 as well for Charles. Very aggressive at the start. Slight criticism that we said in the podcast around perhaps maybe how he stops giving Verstappen so much room, because Verstappen will take it, and Verstappen defended incredibly well. But yes, Charles overall was again really, really good. Great pace. Surprising that he actually was able to pull away from the McLarens. I thought it was going to be the other way around, considering Ferrari's way of chewing through tyres. But it seemed like it was much better. To be that close in qualifying was surprising as well, because I didn't think Ferrari were going to be as close, despite having, I think, 3 pole positions in the last 4 Grand Prix. I thought Abu Dhabi maybe wouldn't have been it, but yeah. Brilliant performance from Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez started 9th, finished 4th. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Sergio Perez this weekend. I think that the stewards were horrible to him, actually. And Perez, I think, the qualifying has been a problem for him all season long, pretty much. But he showed good pace in the race, I would say. He was recovering well. He should have finished 3rd. He should have been on the podium. And that's kind of how I'm judging this. I'm not thinking he finished 4th. I'm thinking he finished 3rd, because I do not think he deserved that penalty with Norris. We've sort of explained why in the podcast. Obviously not on Verstappen's level, but again, kind of where he could be and should be if, he wants to keep his seat moving forward at Red Bull.
Yeah, I've gone for an 8 out of 10 as well. It's borderline 7 and 8 for me, but I see where you're coming from with that whole don't see it as a penalty, because I think it is exceptionally harsh, the fact that Lando didn't have any damage, got ahead, and he essentially could try again. It was a clean move that time. It wasn't anything super malicious either. It wasn't an absolute daring, ridiculous overtake where he smashed into the side of it. So I can see his frustrations, and without that, I think he would have done, he'd have been on the podium. The kind of end to the season he's had has silenced any sort of doubt over his seat. A good, confident way to end the season, that he secured P2 quite easily in the end and had solid drives at the end of the year.
Max Verstappen started 1st, finished 1st.
I've actually gone for a 6 out of 10. No, 10, of course. Made it look easy. Classic Verstappen.
The editor is going to absolutely despise you in this video.
Yeah, incredible defense at the start. Like I said in the main podcast, summed up his year really, where he's made something look incredibly easy that I don't think was that easy. And it's another 10, not been many non-10s this year. Yeah, what more to say? Very, very impressive.
I've also gone for a 10 out of 10, no surprise. And again, as you kind of quite rightly sort of mention that it wasn't that easy of a weekend. They were struggling in free practice. Of course, Max wasn't in FP1 either due to the rookies going in. Defended beautifully on lap 1 and then drove away. Well done, Max Verstappen. I hope you're really happy with 19 wins. Please let someone else have something next year. I beg. Okay, who is our P1? Yuki Tsunoda. Go on. Do it.
Yeah, it's got to be Yuki. Yeah, what more could he have done? A really good drive. Maybe even the best of his career, I want to say.
Finished 4th in Abu Dhabi that time.
Yeah, but I guess that was a crazy race and lots of things happened, which we won't talk about. Very, very good from Yuki.
Okay, well, my P1 is Max Verstappen, because I think he deserves it. I think it was a phenomenal performance from him, and it rounds up an incredible season, one with which I have lauded several times on the podcast, and one final celebration of Max Verstappen winning everything. But no, well done, Max. It was an unbelievable performance, and the reason why he's the best driver on the grid at the moment. And that is it. F1 driver ratings are done and dusted. Please, if you love this series, leave a like. Let us know why you do love it. Let us know what you'd like us to improve next year as well. We're obviously very open to all of that. We want to keep it fresh. We want to keep it moving for 2024, and we'll think about how we can improve this series going forward. Take care, everyone. Adios. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.